Leavenworth Detention Center. Your account balance is $11.06. To hear the charges for this call, press or say 2. To accept this call, press or say 5. To refuse this call, hang up. This call will be recorded and subject to monitoring at any time. Thank you for using IC Solutions. You may begin speaking now.
Don't consider recording on my call. Good morning. I was just wanting to follow up. I had some ideas.
No, go,
a good time?
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. And I never got a text from Pastor Manning, so I probably won't do the show today. But that doesn't mean I won't have a future Tuesday. But yeah, go ahead with your thoughts. Sure. And do you know when your wife is going to trial today?
I think it's about 1 o'clock.
Okay, we'll keep her in our prayers, brother.
Thank you. USAPrepares.com is Vincent Finelli's show. I was a regular guest host. I was on there at least every week with him. Sometimes I would do the show. And this is the guy that's got the contact that's across the water. His show comes on from 9 to 11. And it's GC. Y'all listen to GCNlive.com?
I don't listen to hardly any talk show radio. My wife might.
Okay. She was a listener to the Power Hour. Is that how?
Yeah. She definitely is a listener to the Power Hour.
Okay. Well, if you go to, you got internet access, right?
Yep.
Are you not in front of your computer now?
I'm not in front of there right now. I can go downstairs if you need me to be in front of a computer.
Well, you want me to call you right back, and I can give you this, and you can pull it up and look at it.
No, it's okay. I'll just walk downstairs. Give me just a second.
Okay.
But yeah, you said Vincent Finelli and USAPrepares.com.
Yeah, what I used to do was I would go to GCNlive.com.
Okay.
Charlie November, GCNlive.com.
Yep, I'm sitting in front of the computer. Give me just a second. It's got to warm up here. Let's see. GCNlive.com. Okay, yeah, I got it brought up.
Okay, and it's got a list of the shows.
Yep.
And if you click on that, you can scroll down and go to USAPrepares.com. It's down at the bottom.
Okay. Yep. I got it. Yep.
Okay. It probably gives you a phone number that you can call in and listen, or you could probably click on and listen live when it comes on at 9 a.m. And it's on from 9 to 11, Monday through Friday. And here's what I was thinking you could possibly do. You could probably call in, since your wife was talking about how your kids don't understand a lot of this stuff, and I don't know how old your children are. Are they adults or are they?
Yeah, they're both adults. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Vincent Finelli's children are adults too, and they get it. They've done the research, and it's not readily out there. The mainstream media is not going to explain it. Perhaps you could call in and say, hey, I understand that you've got kids that understand all this stuff about that the government is a corporation and everything. Is that true? And he'll say, yeah. And then he'll try to go into a story. Say, well, I'm curious, how did your children learn all this? Because as most children, they're in their own world, and our kids, they're in their iPhone world, and we can't get across to them any of this stuff. What would you recommend? Is there a source where kids go to share with other kids on how to inform themselves and do their own research and find out what's really going on? And then he'll explain if he knows anything about it. He'll probably say, well, just listen to these shows. But then you could say, I've talked to a guy named Mike Parsons that I understand used to be on your show quite frequently. And then say, I don't know if you've heard or not, but his wife is being sentenced today. They're trying to sentence her to 20 years in prison because the FBI has framed her, claiming that she's pay some bounty hunter to arrest a judge, and she didn't do anything like that. And I didn't know if y'all knew anything about that story or not. I figured y'all might be able to share with us what's going on, because I just found out about her being sentenced today, and we're all concerned about how this man and his wife are just totally being destroyed by this system, and we don't hear anything about it on the radio. That will put him in the position of an opportunity if he wants to say something, and if he doesn't, he won't. But at least that will be telling to see, because it could be that he can't bring it up, but he will talk about it, or he will allow you the forum to talk about it. More than likely, it's the latter. There was a guy in Memphis, a radio talk show host, and he told me off air, he said, Mike, you call in all the time, you bring up this stuff, and every now and then I poo-poo it and stuff like that, realize everything you're telling me is the truth, but I can't say it's the truth. But I can let you call in and talk about it and steer other people to other information. He said, as long as you want to keep calling and sharing that information, keep calling. But he says, if I don't, recognize it and say it's true, don't worry about that. I know it. I know what you're trying to wake people up. And he said, if I try to do that, they'll throw me off the air.
Are you familiar with? I'm just curious. Are you familiar with a man by the name of Pat Shannon? He's an author.
No.
Okay, I'm just curious because I went to usaprepares.com and Vincent Finelli is promoting him, and I'm familiar with his books. But in any event, Mike,
what's his books about?
It's about corporate America stuff, and how the government is fiat money and exposing the Federal Reserve. He's wrote a lot of books. He's also active in supporting some of the political prisoners. I don't agree with him on all of the points that he is making at times, but I think he's trying his best to support the political prisoners. So Mike, we are recording this, and I may not get a chance to call into Vincent Finelli, but I know that there have been people that have commented that they're very familiar with his radio show, and maybe they can also do it as well. So even if I'm not the activator of the action item, at least I'm getting the word out so that the vessel, for anybody who else is listening, we're going to continue to try to transmit your voice to others who may be listening, and maybe they can do that as well. So,
well, if somebody could call into his show and ask that, because I think it could be a situation where he just can't bring it up, but yet if somebody else does, he'll allow it, and then he may comment. But he and I were very, very close friends.
Yeah.
And for him, and John, here's another name for you, John Statmiller. What are you close to Dallas?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever heard of John Statmiller?
Somebody else brought him up to me, and I have not had a chance to listen to him yet, but I remember somebody recently mentioning his name.
John has he used to own GCN. He had all that stable of people, and he got bought out. Well, now he's got one called RepublicBroadcasting.com. And if you go there and look it up, you can find his contact information. He told me, I called John from the jail. I have, a cell phone number. All these people, I know him personally. He said that Vincent got a call and said, don't talk to Parsons, don't talk about Parsons. And for whatever reason, and he says, he will not tell me, he says, he will not tell me over the phone who it is. But it's put the fear in him. So I'm wondering who is calling these people in the radio, stable of people that are friends of mine and telling them not to talk about me.
Yeah.
Is the FBI? Is it the Vatican? Who is it?
It's probably the FBI. It's probably the I mean, I don't know. It could be the Vatican too. But we just watched a movie last night. It's called Terror, and it's got open parenthesis T, close parenthesis, and they spell it in a very unique way. But it's about how FBI informants set up people in the Muslim community. And Democracy Now! With National Public Broadcasting, as well as the Mother Jones. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. They're like a big news article, I think, in New York. Anyway, this Khalifa guy, he was the main character of the movie, and it shows how the FBI went and tried to entrap him and set him up, very similar to how they're entrapping people in the Christian Patriot community. There's also a book called The Terror Factory, but they focus completely on how the FBI uses informants and entrapment in the Muslim community. They completely ignore FBI entrapment cases in the Christian Patriot community. But I just wanted to share that, they're very, we were talking about we need more media mass coverage. We need more people to know about this. From the Muslims' perspective, they've been dealing with this a lot longer than I think the Christian Patriot community, and they're it's very widely known. I mean, Leonard Peltier has been in prison 41 years, right? And there's been...
Yeah, he's a Native American. He's a Native American falsely accused of shooting an FBI agent.
Right, and sorry about that. Jack Ryan was the FBI agent in his case, and Jack Ryan came out on camera and said the primary function of the FBI is to squelch political dissent and protect the establishment. The point I'm trying to make is that that movie that we watched last night, that has gotten a tremendous amount of attention to FBI informants in the case of Khalil Akili, which is currently in prison in a secret CMU Marion prison, Marion, Illinois. It didn't do him any good, right? I mean, he's still in prison, even though everybody knows about it, knows that he was set up, knows that he was entrapped. It's going to take more than just media attention, because I think a lot of people are aware of what's going on and how bad the FBI is, but we just don't have anybody that's brave enough to do anything about it.
Right. Here's the thing. You got to have lawyers that will get into these courts and get these courts to overturn these convictions and let these people go free. And sometimes it takes political pressure from Congress or the White House. And if you don't have that, it's just academic.
Yeah.
Because they've got a standing army, and they're coming after people left and right and framing people left and right and destroying too many lives. And they've declared war on we the people.
No doubt about it.
And, today it's me, and tomorrow it's going to be the next guy. And anybody that dares speak out, and, then there you are. You just be a happy slave, or you get ready for the consequences until there is awakening. And I believe that this country can be saved. It's just a matter of an awakening. And if Trump can clean out the corruption within the CIA and the FBI, then all this can stop. It doesn't have to happen. But it's got to have people shining the light on the corruption to put a stop to it. Because the status quo, Republican and Democrats, they like the system just like it is. They will not come to the help, even though Roy Moore is falsely, I don't know what his deal is. The thing about Alabama is this, back in those days, you could marry a 13-year-old. Jerry Lee Lewis married a 13-year-old in Alabama.
Yeah. No, my pastor, Pastor Stefan Broden, is a very staunch supporter of Roy Moore. There's no, he's a African-American pastor in South Dallas, been there for 25 years, and he completely sides with what you just said, that, they're trying to set him up and entrap him because he was standing up for godly and biblical principles.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily subscribe to it, but I know this. Both of my grandfathers married my grandmothers when my grandmothers were 15.
Yeah.
My one grandfather was 21, and the other grandfather 35.
Wow.
But in 1910, when my first they got married in 1930 to 1930, 32. She was 15 in 1930 or 32 when they got married. He was 35. He had traveled the world as a merchant marine his whole life. He got enlisted when he was like 16, 17, and has traveled the world, and finally came home and got married, and the only women available were
1 minute remaining.
That was just what they did back then.
No, and that's exactly what Pastor Stefan Broden said, that was a different time back then, and different cultural norms,
Yeah, it was, and childbearing years as it was, they started early and had kids, and that was it.
If you get an update about your wife, I mean, I don't know how we're going to get, we would definitely love to hear how things have gone, but that's up, up to you, and we're praying for her.
Yeah, and if you could contact John Statmiller, Republic Broadcasting, and let him know and see if there's ask if he knows any Patriot lawyers out there, because without their help, it's just end game. It's over for everybody.
Yeah. I'll try to reach out, Mike, but I don't know if people consider me radioactive or whatever, but if there's other people that can reach out as well. I typically send people emails. I never hear anything from anybody. I've gotten so used to being ignored, it's sickening, but
well,
yeah.
John.
Okay, cut him off in mid-sentence. He'll probably call back. The challenge is that these phone calls are eating up a ton of money. I mean, I don't want to mention that in front of Mike, but he goes through $30 every 2 days, and that adds up. And we've already spent several $100s on these phone calls. And the terrible truth is, I can't continue to pour money into these phone calls, And so we'll have to communicate via letter. But I don't know if he'll call back or not. He probably will, because he probably has a little bit of money on the account. But we'll see. But the 2 action items I got was John Statmiller and Vincent Forelli with usaprepares.com. If we could, if you're hearing this and you want to help reach out to those 2 gentlemen, I don't know if they will pay attention to multiple people reaching out to them on behalf of Mike Parsons, rather than just me all by myself. All right, take care.
Balance is $7.11. To hear the charges for this call, press or say 2. To accept this call, press or say 5. To review this call, hang up now. This call will be recorded and subject to monitoring at any time. Thank you for using IC Solutions. You may begin speaking now.
Okay, real quick, I don't consent to recording my call. Mrs. Parsons may have John Statmiller's cell phone number. This is what I was going to ask you, and I think this will help a lot of people in my shoes. If you can get on GCN's website and you can look up, you know where these people are that are in prison. I'm right next to Kansas City, Missouri. That's the big metropolis. If you could look and see if any of these GCN shows or the Republic Broadcasting, if they've got any AM or FM affiliates that they're broadcasting this stuff on, if you could make a list and mail it out to me and anybody else, then we would know what shows are on what stations, so we could try to get access to radios and listen, because here's what can happen. There's no way that you can email, mail, and call and talk to everybody, but if we're listening to radio shows and you get information to the radio show, they can announce it. They will. Joyce Wright used to do that for me when I was locked up in prison, and I had people that would call her and relay information to her that would, like something that would potentially benefit me, or about a case or this or that. She would bring it up during her little news segment. She would say, and for those of you out there, locked up in those concrete 7-Elevens, that, we just heard about this case or this case, or, so that way it's a communication stream.
Well, yeah, and let me say this. We do have a website where we list a whole slew of political prisoners, yearofjubilee.com. And I communicate with probably 30-plus prisoners, Mike, and every one of them, some of them are on Alabama death row, some of them are in Marion secret prisons, and every one of them, when they contact me, they always have like a list of action items, right? And I easily get overwhelmed. Not only that, but I've lost my job of 20-something years recently, so I've lost my own income stream, and I'm just saying like you said, we don't have any supply lines. And
what happened? What happened there?
I wouldn't go along with their LGBTQ crap, and I worked with Cisco Systems for 20 years, and they had a guy in our group that his name was Keith, and he decided he wanted to be called Cheryl and change his picture in the directory, wear a wig and lipstick, wanted to change his name, email address from Keith to Cheryl at Cisco.com, and anyway, I didn't go along with all their crap about, inclusiveness and diversity with the LGBTQ community. I had a boss that was stationed out of Australia, and anyway, she was really anti-gun, pro-government, and we just didn't hit it off. And she found a way to fire me, and so that's the problem with putting these managers as people from across the world. They don't share American values or biblical values. That's for sure.
what kind of work do you do? You're an electrical engineer?
I was an electrical engineer, graduated from Southern Methodist University, worked in the high-tech computer industry for 30-plus years, 20 years at Cisco. They fired me just a few days before my 20th anniversary. But, you know, and I've made videos about that to kind of expose how corrupt our corporate system is, because if you don't go along with their LGBTQ crap, you won't be included in the club, you know. So.
Right. And I know all about that. Now, what did you actually do for them? Because I might know of a source.
Yeah, well, I'm not looking for a job at this particular point in time. I'm gonna take it easy for a while and try to deal with this prison ministry that the Lord has kind of put in our laps. But I did design and troubleshoot and build networks for Cisco and some of their most popular customers. Their most the biggest stock is like the Fidelity networks, PepsiCo, AT&T, Texaco, Texas Instruments, things like that. But anyway, enough of me. But the point I'm trying to make is that I'm not really good at doing action items, but I'm good at getting your voice out so that people that can hear, they can do the action items, because I'm so overwhelmed with the 30-plus prisoners that we talk to. It's not practical. So and also I'm not really the best spokesman when I speak to some of these people, because they think of me as kind of radioactive because I'm so dogmatic in some of my religious views, and they might want to speak to somebody who's a bit more middle of the road,
Well, I was thinking if the people on the inside had a list of terrestrial radio stations that are fairly near the facilities where they're locked up, then they could at least tune in and listen and try to see if they can pick up any encouraging information. Because let's say if somebody's listening to what used to be the Power Hour and they heard that information and they transmit to all these different radio stations that are within the vicinity of these prisons, then they would have some at least hope and maybe get that information and try to apply it. Because I know there are people that are getting out of prison, but they're getting out of prison through filing through the courts and forcing the court to release them. When I was locked up and there's a guy there in Omaha, Mrs. Parsons called about him. He was on the Power Hour and talked about how he literally, as an inmate, learned this stuff and wrote himself a petition, got back in the court, and got out. And he got other people out too. And now he's working in New York, doing nothing but writing petitions for people before the Supreme Court.
What's his name?
I can't remember.
Okay.
Mrs. Parsons.
Okay.
I can't remember the guy's name, but there's a place in Omaha, Nebraska that he used to work for, and I've got it written down. I can look it up, but that's what they do. Is they write briefs to the Supreme Court to try to get people out of prison, and it's like this: if you sit there and you don't ever make an attempt, you're not going anywhere until your time is up. But those people that apply themselves are getting out if they can get to the right person. It's all about getting to the right judge.
And I've seen a lot of these people that have been in prison for 6, 7, 10 years, things like that, or even 15 plus. They're writing to the international world courts and the World Court of Justice, and they've just tried to bypass the American system altogether. Whether that helps or not, I'm not sure. I have heard stories where people are successful, but I don't know anybody personally that has.
Right, and there's a prime example. All we have to do is find if somebody comes up with a case where they've gone to the World Court, then make that information available. Tell people, this is where it is, and if it's listed on a website where people can their family can go to it and download it and redo the same thing. Yeah, it takes time to get the World Court to react, but they react and then they order them to release you. And in my case, I'm an ambassador of another country. My wife is the wife of an ambassador. We're actually protected under diplomatic immunity by the Vienna Convention, which the United States is a signatory to. And even though it's a Native American nation, in the United States and Europe, for whatever reason, they seem to be hostile towards indigenous people. Always have been.
Right. Yeah, I totally see that as well. So another challenge that we're going to run into, Mike, is as you know, they're raping and pillaging from the phone call perspective, and then there's going to be lack of resources to continue to communicate via phone. But that doesn't mean we're not going to continue to write letters. I'm just saying it's a war, and we got to deal with all of these practical problems that arise in the situation.
Right. What I was going to suggest is that if you, how much is it to get a Google number? Are those free, or are they?
Well, I have one, but because I had one that was tied to Florida, I tried to change it to like a Tennessee or a Kansas, and it's not letting me, which means I got to get a whole new Google account to get a new number. And it is free, but it doesn't let you change it once you've already picked one, and I had picked one for a previous prisoner. So I'm running into some tactical challenges there, but we'll see. The thing is, I did pick a Kansas City number, and I called the prison with next to Leavenworth, the IC Solutions group, and they still said it was 21 cents a minute, even though the number was very close to the Kansas City prison. Matter of fact, when I put money on your IC Solutions, I don't even put it on Kansas, I put it on Tennessee, even though you're in Kansas. So the whole thing is really weird.
Well, Pat set one up through Leavenworth. She got a prefix that's like in the same county, and it's supposed to be 7 cents a minute.
Has she for sure called IC Solutions and confirmed that? Because I got an area code that was very close to your prison, and I called them and asked them how much will this area code be, and they still said it was 21 cents a minute. So I'll be interested.
Was it? Yeah. The thing is, you're in a different state. You're even though you're just a few feet away, you're in another state.
Yeah.
That's it's intralata. It's called intralata rates.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'll keep trying.
Yeah, you're going to another state, and she found that she can do it here, and it's 7 cents a minute, from what I understand.
Assuming the situation, she gets sentenced today, is it possible they'll take her into custody today? Is that possible?
It's possible.
I see.
What one friend of ours said is that normally what they'll do, they'll just say, okay, you've got a month or two to turn yourself in.
Wow.
They give you time to turn yourself in, and
I see. Okay. But, we'll keep that in our prayers, man. I know that's got to be tough.
I've given her the name of a lawyer, that everybody's got their hand out for money, and I don't expect people to work for free, but it's like this. She needs to withdraw the plea, remain free, whether she's on bond or no bond. She needs to remain free, and then she needs to fight the case and get the case dismissed. I don't care if it costs $15,000, $30,000. I don't care. I want her to remain free.
Yeah.
Because this would kill her. Because it'd be a domino effect. Our animals would not survive, and that would kill her spirit, and then that would end me.
Well, so women are not built for this fight, Mike. I think you understand that, and it goes to show how evil the enemy is that they would target your wife like this. I mean, people don't quite comprehend how evil the FBI and how corrupt they have become, that they would target your wife in some sort of entrapment scheme like this and threaten her with that many years in prison for something that is just absurd. And I don't know what to say, man. Sometimes it's hard to come up with words, but I understand, the situation. I wish more people did,
You understand because you're experiencing it. You lost a job based on part of their protocol that they infiltrate these corporations, force this gay agenda. I lost a child because of the gay agenda, but then I got him back because I didn't quit fighting. I lost a job with Federal Express because the pro-homosexual judge called and had me fired. So you're dealing with the same. I don't know how old you are, but you're dealing with the same stuff I've been dealing with since the early '90s.
Yeah, it's horrific.
If a man is going to act like a man and be independent, self-sufficient, self-governing, and responsible, provide for his family, and raise children, they don't like that.
Yeah. Yeah, they try to oppress us with taxes and make us dependent upon government handouts, and they can't handle independent, self-sufficient people, just like you said.
No, they want everybody dependent. Even if you're capable of being independent, they want to make you dependent. We're going to take all your money and then give you some back, so that means you've got a benefit. It's forced commerce, and that website, anticorruptionsociety.com. the tab lawfully yours. The first 14 pages tells it all.
Yeah.
And the ghostwriters, they go by Judge Dale and a couple other people, but there's a book called Fruit from the Poisonous Tree by Melvin Stamper, and I got that book, and they let it sit there on the lieutenant's desk in the jail for a month before I finally got it. They didn't want me to have it. I said, it's a law book from a lawyer.
Yeah, that Judge Dale, that Judge Dale, his name came up quite a bit in the Ken Hovind trial. You know, he actually beat his charge in a federal court. He's a free man today, but I remember Ken Hovind.
Who beat his charge in federal court?
Ken Hovind.
I thought he served all his time in prison. I didn't know he beat anything.
Yeah, no, he got sent to prison for structuring or withdrawing his own money from his own bank to pay his own bills.
Right, he had a bad lawyer and he lost. Right?
Yeah, well, yeah, the lawyer told him not to put up any defense at all, and so he didn't put up any defense. He went to prison for 9 years, served the whole 9 years. At the end of the 9 years, he had a Muslim cellmate who said, hey, why don't you mail a letter? And he mailed a letter, and they tried to put him in prison another 20 years for trying to protect his property after he was told not to, and he beat that. Because they wanted to keep him in prison another 20 years. They were setting him up inside jail.
And who was the lawyer? Did he use a lawyer or did he use Hanson?
Some kind of Liberty Justice League thing. He did try to use Hanson, but Hanson was his co-defendant.
Okay, but Hanson got his cases beat?
Yeah, Hanson's free now. I don't know if he beat it, but he served a lot of time. He served over a year in prison.
Okay, but he beat the charge, obviously.
He's out of prison. I think his charges were dismissed just like Hovind. So they're both out of prison now, thank God. It was incredible to see somebody win at the federal level because that's so rare.
Yeah, you got to fight. Here's the thing, you got to fight. So it's what's it called again? Liberty what?
Oh my goodness, United States Liberty Justice or something like that. I'll email it to you. I'll send a mail to you unless I talk to you when you call back. I'll try to look it up.
Okay.
Okay, cut him off mid-sentence again. I can't remember the name of all these dang lawyers, and you know Mike's putting a lot of his emphasis on getting a good lawyer. That's not my thing. Not only that, but I've never met a lawyer I like in my whole freaking life. And so I hope he does get a good lawyer. I hope Mike gets a good lawyer. I'm not going to try to stop him, but I'm not the right guy to talk to about lawyers because when the word lawyer comes out of my mouth, my stomach turns ill and I want to go to the nearest toilet and vomit. So I don't even like mentioning the word. But hey, I understand Mike thinks that he needs a good one, and I hope he does find a good one if there is such a thing. I think it's probably more like a unicorn, but that's just my opinion.